Kamran Akmal, man, strike rate of 164 in
Kamran
the
Akmal, of course.
IPL. I will fight for Pollard till death to have him.
I think Pakistan fans remember very well my classy, so
No,
I don't think
what?
it's a surprise for us. But hello and welcome to Silly Point. Today we're going to carry on with our IPL theme, but something slightly different rather than focusing on the current IPL, which I'm sure you've had an overload of. And there's been a lot of cricket going on, some very interesting matches. Really happy that my predictions so far seem to be working with RCB on top and CSK at the bottom. But let's see how that carries on. But today we're going to be discussing over the years who have been the top 15 batsmen in the IPL. And just to split it out, we'll do it in two parts. So today we'll have our first part where we'll discuss the top 15 to 8. And then midweek we'll have a new episode to finalize the from the top 7, so number 7 to number 1 in the IPL. It's going to be an interesting debate. I've got G here with me.
Hello, everyone.
As always, there'll be some names that you will not like, which will be included, and some players that you would want and will not be, you wouldn't want to include and will be part of our list. So let us know in your comments who you think should be part of the list if we haven't included them and where they should be. We need to be very, very clear here that this is just IPL records. So international pedigree and international talent and international records are irrelevant here.
And so is captaincy. I mean, we always try and add bits and pieces about a player, about their temperament, about their captaincy, their skills under pressure. None of that. This is purely, based on how well they've batted in the IPL.
Yeah, and also just to make it a bit more streamlined, minimum of 30 IPL games.
Yes.
That means they would have played for at least 2.5 seasons. So there's some, decent sample size to go by.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've had some players in the past. For example, someone like Johnny Bairstow, who's had a decent IPL, but he just hasn't played enough to qualify.
Kamran Akmal, man, strike rate of 164
Kamran
in the
Akmal,
IPL.
of course. The GOAT.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start off in reverse order.
Yeah.
We're going to start with number 15.
And so personally for me, I found picking the 15th best very difficult because there are so many options and so many so many unusual options, like you would never think unless you actually look down the list and see, all right, who are the batsmen that have scored a lot of runs, averages, sixes, strike rates. So I'm really confused between some batsmen like Hardik Pandya and David Miller, who've got very high strike rates and they've maintained it over a long period of time, versus players like Mike Hussey, who's got a brilliant average. They've batted really well consistently, and JP Duminy, for example, who's averaging 40 in the IPL. So like number 15 for me is a very big question mark. So I don't know if you have an idea of who you want to pick.
I was debating. I was debating someone like a Pandya again, but I actually have someone in my list. I have one of the OGs of the IPL, Vrinder Sehwag, who has a fantastic strike rate. I think you have to also consider, compare slightly different eras. I think in the early years, 2008, 2009, 10, the IPL was slightly different, where you didn't have a lot of those ramp shots and, the shots that Hardik Pandya or someone like Josh Butler plays. Sehwag, during that time, his average is not exceptional, 27, 28. His strike rate's pretty good. He's got a couple of hundreds as well. So I think, although towards the end, I think his obviously form went down, and that kind of has an impact on his overall stats. But you can't not have Vrinder Sehwag in that list.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess so. I'm just thinking about, I'm also thinking about.
I'll make it easier for you. I actually have one of the players you mentioned at number 14. So
which is so let's go to 14 and see who that is.
I actually had Mike Hussey. Surprisingly, has a very good record. He actually has one orange cap also.
Yes.
I think they didn't win that year. They lost in the final.
Yeah.
But I think you have to look at overall impact. I mean, we were just not doing averages and strike rates, right? You have to look at the overall impact. How they've performed when it's mattered. And so I'll have my 15 and 14 are Sehwag and Hussey. Okay. Very close. You can reverse it.
I'll accept Hussey maybe. either at 14 or 15. But I think in terms of, if I look at Sehwag
Yeah.
and then I look at some other openers, right,
Yeah.
that might have had a similar impact like Sehwag,
Yeah.
someone like a Sana Jayasuriya, or even a Shane Watson when he used to open for Rajasthan Royals.
Yeah.
I think you've got to consider them to be a little more consistent and a
Yeah.
little more, a little better than Sehwag. That's my opinion. I know people will have different opinions on this, but for someone like Miller and Pandya, the thing
Yeah.
that's going for them is they're basically middle order batsmen,
Yeah.
right? So it's much more difficult for them to kind of maintain a higher strike rate than an opener. I mean, for an opener,
No, it's easier. They come in, they hit two sixes, 12 of six, of two, and that's it. They're done.
no, but the
And they
thing
get
is,
not
you
outs
also
as
have
well.
there's also a lot of risk, right? Because
Yeah.
you tend to not score as many runs and you tend to have
Yeah.
a lower average. So, but if, for example, if I look at David Miller averages 33 and a strike rate of 140, 138, 139. I think from the time he started playing for Punjab and
Yeah.
then the period that he was in Punjab, he was super consistent.
No, I agree. I think I'll have one of Miller, Pandya, and Sehwag.
Yeah,
I think the problem with Miller is also his form has kind of dipped over the last 2 years,
of course. Yeah, yeah,
um, which has again had an impact on his record.
yeah,
Hardik Pandya obviously has actually been involved in winning teams, so that
yeah,
obviously counts big. Although
yeah,
the issue is for Pandya, although he has a fantastic strike rate and a very decent average, 28, 29.
yeah. 29. Yeah,
The one innings that I remember of his is that 90 odd against KKR, and was it KKR? Yeah, and or
I think it
RCB,
was KKR. Yeah, yeah.
and they lost that match. So
Yeah. No, but see, the thing is, the impact that Pandya has,
he only
right?
has three
We talk,
fifties. I mean, that's not a lot, is it?
yeah, it's not a lot, but like I said, it's about he maximizes the deliveries that he gets, right? He can come in
Yeah.
from ball one and really strike it. So actually, my opinion is yes, Pandya probably at 15 and then Hasi at 14.
Okay, fine.
Are you okay with that? We will accept that. Okay.
I'm okay with that. I hope Sehwag fans aren't watching this, or
No, no, they will be watching it. Why not? Let them watch it, but everyone has a different opinion on
I
what they
know, I
value
agree.
more.
To be fair,
Uh,
it was tight. It was very tight
Yeah,
between
even if you look at the overall numbers, Sehwag versus Pandya, averages,
similar.
Pandya averages 1 run more, strike rates are
Yeah,
similar, but it's just that I feel that Pandya bats in a more difficult period,
yeah,
right? It's a very niche, kind of a very niche thing in the IPL,
yeah.
and he was one of the first few Indian exponents of
True.
power hitting, in
Okay.
the IPL. So I'd say 15. We'll go with 15 Pandya
Okay.
and
Fine.
14 Hasi. Hasi purely, like Hasi could bat anywhere in Chennai. He could open. He could
Yeah.
bat in the middle order
Uh,
and be very consistent, score runs consistently. It's surprising that someone like Hasi was such a good T20 player.
yeah,
He
I
could
agree. I
actually
agree. I
play.
mean, not surprising. I think Pakistan fans remember very well my classy, so
No, no.
I
What
don't think
what
it's a surprise for us. But
what I mean is the fact that obviously he played a lot of
yeah,
first class cricket and a lot of ODI cricket, not
yeah,
maybe as much as T20 cricket as some of the guys play now. So,
yeah,
just the fact that, he came in with lesser experience,
yeah.
and then he did really well in the IPL. So, yeah, I think, 14 is a good position for him.
Yeah. Number 13. Okay, I had the great man. I had Sachin Tendulkar.
I am going to veto that
Oh my God. Okay, I
on
think we've
all
just
account.
lost like 500 subscribers.
just on account of his low strike rate. That's it. Nothing else. I've got nothing against Sachin Tendulkar per se.
Yeah, I mean
Obviously,
he again he's an orange cap winner, right? He's won it once, so he's had an impact. Obviously, he hasn't. He played only in the earlier parts.
yeah.
His average is okay. His strike rate is low, but again, you have to consider he played in the earlier years where 150, 160 was probably the average score rather
Uh,
than the 200s now.
it depends, right? So the first thing is the Wankhede Stadium, where
Yeah,
Mumbai Indians obviously played
yeah,
their home games. So they played like 50% of the season there. That
yeah,
that Wankhede wicket is an absolute road,
yeah,
right? It has been since day one, right?
yeah,
And scores of like 180,
yeah,
are very common there. And I guess for Tendulkar to have a strike rate of 120 is pretty poor in my opinion. I mean, if this was 130, right? that would have been a
Yeah.
different ball game. I would have said yes, bring him on, great average, right? And obviously he was opening at that time with Sana Jayasuriya,
Yeah.
right? Sana
True.
Jayasuriya
So,
had a very high
no,
strike
but
rate,
that's the
but
thing, right? I mean, Surya was the accelerator, and Tendulkar was
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
batting through the innings, which he did in was it 2012, 2011 when he won 2010 when he won the orange cap,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they came second that year, so it's not that bad.
So
Um,
like so I was who I actually had at 13 is a completely different,
I think I know where this
different
is going.
option from these. Um, I mean, I basically had Rishabh Pant. So in terms of Rishabh Pant's overall record,
Yeah,
right?
I know
It's
his record is good.
he's averaging 37 at a strike rate of 160. He has 96 sixes. So
Yeah,
he's pretty good. Like I mean, his strike rate is right up there, and his
yeah.
average is also better than Tendulkar.
Can't compare Tendulkar and Rishabh Pant. I mean, what are you doing? But anyway, the only other name I'd put in that discussion is Kevin Peterson, who hasn't played a lot of games.
Yeah,
I mean, he's played 35, so he just makes the cut. He has a decent average, 37 and strike rate of just over 130. But then that's, I think, by Peterson's standards, I just don't think that's good enough. You would have expected him to have
wow,
a strike rate of 150 plus. Again, if
yeah,
Tendulkar had those stats in the team and the impact that he has, maybe you would have gone for him.
yeah.
Um, again,
The
Rishabh
other,
Pant.
sorry, I was going to say the other player that we could potentially consider is Yusuf Pathan.
Yusuf Pathan, yes, but again, I think his stats are hit and miss. Right, he's had one or two good innings, or
Yeah,
not even seasons. I don't remember him consistently having a good season.
yeah. I mean, surprisingly, his average is 29 and his strike rate is 143. So that's like, that's pretty good for being a hit and miss player. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously, you remember the impact that he had.
yeah,
I think he scored 100 of 37 deliveries.
yeah,
So like that kind of impact, and
yeah,
this was like in the early years of the IPL, like 2009, 10, 8, 9, 10,
yeah.
that kind of period. So that's incredible in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't certainly consider Tendulkar. So maybe it's a toss up between Pant and Pathan.
If I have to pick one of the two, it has to be Yusuf Pathan.
We can go with
Uh,
Pathan. I'm
yeah,
good.
let's go with Yusuf Pathan. I mean, Rishabh Pant, as good as he is, there's might be some recent bias against him. He's been again hit and miss, and that's my concern for Rishabh Pant is
Cool.
obviously everyone remembers that 70 odd DP play he scored against MI last
Yeah.
year, was it?
Yeah.
But
I saw that match live.
really
Yeah, I saw
nice.
that match
So
live.
so that's why you have him because you remember that moment.
Yeah, I remember. The batting was incredible. I mean, obviously he played out like 5 dots and then he went bang, bang, bang after that.
Yeah,
So it was an incredible innings. But yeah, maybe the lack of like big scores or match-winning scores, if you like, is
yeah,
missing.
yeah,
That's really lacking. So I think we
yeah,
can go with Pathan then at 13.
yeah. Okay, let's
Cool.
let's go
So
with Yusuf
just to
Pathan.
recap, we've gone for Pandya at 15,
Yeah,
Mike Hussey at 14, and
Yusuf
Yusuf
Pathan.
Pathan at 13. So you can see a clear trend there. We're looking for power hitters,
Yeah.
and that's what I think T20 is all about.
Yeah, well, we will have some variation coming up, and I think and coming on to actually that I actually have at number 12, Sean Marsh,
Okay.
who one of the OGs of the IPL. Obviously, he has some sentimental value for me because that was the first IPL in 2008.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal that year.
Yeah.
It's pretty much unknown, really. You had all these big name players like Gilchrist and Simons and Tendulkar and
Yeah.
at the time, Jayasuriya,
And no
uh,
one did
and
anything.
nobody really had a. Brendan McCullum obviously started off really well, but then
Yeah.
went down. And he was the one who stood up and
Yeah.
made a name for himself.
Yeah.
So I have to. I mean, There's an argument he could be higher up the list, but he had a very good IPL in the first few years. He went downhill over time,
Yeah.
but I think he
No,
deserves it
certainly.
for the
I
impact
mean,
he had.
yeah, Marsh certainly deserves to be in this list. The question is where,
Yeah.
where on that list. I've got him higher up, right?
Okay.
For me, the person that I've put in at 12 is, I mean, you could potentially say it's recent bias, but that's why he's at 12. if he had, if he had the kind of seasons he's had in the last couple of years more consistently,
Yeah.
then he would be higher up. But I think KL Rahul deserves, a mention.
Dude, KL
Um,
Rahul. Okay, let's come to KL Rahul. Is spoiler alert, is way up my list.
is
So
way up your list. Fine. So let's maybe let's keep KL Rahul, separate, and then maybe Marsh.
okay, for
Yes.
me, okay, here's my disclaimer,
Yeah.
and I think we're about to again get some real hate. Number 12 is very low, but for me it was actually between Sean Marsh and Rohit Sharma at number 12.
Rohit Sharma, really?
Yes,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, I mean, for whatever he's done, they've won 4 IPLs, but his record over the years has not been phenomenal. He's played a few good innings. He from the big Indian names that we actually know, I think he's probably the worst of those big Indian players in the IPL
Um,
only.
it depends on how you look at it, right? I mean, okay, fine. He might not have had those big innings like, we remember, for example, for
Yeah,
someone like Yusuf Pathan or an Andre Russell, for example.
yeah,
But the impact that he's had, for example, if we take the recent match, was
yeah.
it Mumbai versus?
So the game against Kings 11.
Yeah, so it was the game against Kings 11, right? Where
Yeah,
obviously Pollard and Pandya right at the end, they
yeah,
absolutely hammered the bowling.
yeah,
But if you actually take into account, the context of the game,
yeah.
what was happening, right? Rohit Sharma actually had the most impact on that game. So
Yeah.
it's not like he
No,
was the
but
high.
by that standard, lots of players have had it. Rishabh Pant has had a fantastic impact on 1 or 2 games, right? That's not the
No, I'm
my
not saying I'm not saying 1 or 2 games. My point is that he might only score a
yeah.
50. He might not be the highest scorer in a match, but he scores the tough runs. That's
He
my
scored he
opinion.
scored 80 odd as well in one of the earlier games this year.
Yeah, yeah,
But then you have to look at it again. I'm sure a lot of our viewers, they would have seen the documentary Cricket Fever, I think it is called, on Netflix, where they follow Mumbai Indians' journey through the IPL. And that season, well, that's the season that they didn't do too well.
yeah,
He again had 1 or 2 good games. He scored a 90 odd and a 50 or so 60 in one game, but that's all he's done. He's not consistently. He's not had a stellar tournament, and that's my argument for having him solo. All the other batsmen we have in my list, they've had 1 or 2 phenomenal seasons,
yeah.
and
Obviously,
Sharma
that's
hasn't had that. Which
yeah,
is why, for
yeah.
me, I mean, coming back to the Marsh versus Sharma debate, for me, it's 11, 12, and 11. One, we can have Sharma at 12 and Marsh at 11, or the other way around. That's
Marsh
my
at 12 and Sharma at 11. That's fine. Sharma's really low. I had kept Sharma really high up in my list, but fine. I'll take your argument on that.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
mean,
then
if you
yeah.
put captaincy and winning
No,
ability
no,
and this,
no.
obviously you put
We're
that
not.
into it, then obviously it'll be much higher.
We're talking just about batting ability.
Exactly.
Obviously he's the second highest run scorer in the IPL. That
Yeah.
just hasn't happened overnight.
Yeah. No, but then again, that's
So,
that's 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 got to do with a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's played so many games. His average is early 30s. It's not even like late 30s or 40,
yeah.
which is the case for pretty much all the other players that we have on the list. But anyways, so let's lock in.
Marsh at 12 and Sharma at 11.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Cool. Number 10.
Number 10, I had Sharma's teammate Karen Pollard.
Ooh, I have Pollard much higher, and I will fight for Pollard till death to have him much higher. I won't tell you what number, but certainly right up there. I mean, his impact on the IPL ever since he's been picked by
Yeah,
Mumbai Indians, it's been incredible, right? Way back in 2010, we used
yeah,
to have, people used to have the discussion about, oh, Pollard is a super hitter. Should he be
yeah,
batting up the order? Should he be batting lower down the order? Mumbai went down the route of, okay, having him bat at
yeah,
6, 7, making him face as little balls as possible. So he was the OG,
yeah,
he was OG Russell, if you want to call him the OG power hitter, the OG
yeah,
West Indian in the IPL to make it big in the IPL,
yeah.
whatever. He was the man. So for me, he has to be much higher.
Okay, look, again, it all comes down to who you're putting in where, right?
Yeah,
And
of
and
course.
again, you're putting in where I've got the other players I've got. Again, I've looked at obviously impact.
Yeah,
Stats have come into it. Pollard, phenomenal player. As disappointed as I'm sure our fans would be that Sharma has missed out on the top 10. I think the fact that Pollard makes it into the top 10 of a pure batting list is
yeah,
an achievement in itself, because he is over at the end of the day an all-rounder.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, again,
So
fantastic
right.
strike
So
rate.
let me make it easier, right?
Yeah,
Forget Pollard. I think who deserves to be number 10 is
yeah.
Andre Russell. That's my opinion.
Again, that's the debate.
You
I have Russell
you
much higher, right?
you have
So
Russell much
it's
higher.
Russell versus Pollard.
Well,
Who
then
makes it?
then then we can pick some of the other options. So you've got someone like a David Warner, or you've got someone like a Suresh Raina.
Raina, I don't mind actually. Raina, I wouldn't mind at 10. I
Yeah.
mean, for all his fantastic plaudits that he's gotten, and I'm sure all the CSK fans will actually argue he's probably number one because he's pretty much played every single game that
he's
Chennai
the
and Gujarat played.
he's the Chinna Thala. So
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm sure Chennai fans won't be too happy with us having him at number 10. But
yeah.
he's again been
I
very
actually,
consistent performer.
yeah. I mean, spoiler alert, I had him at 9 to be honest. So
So fine, yeah.
fine.
I had him much higher up, but actually to be fair, right? If I'm actually thinking about it, the only two players I think that deserve to be at number 10 is Raina or David Warner, and I'd probably go with Warner. I mean, if you think about it, Raina's been more consistent than Warner. Warner, ever since 2016, you could say
Dude,
the last
I'm
three or
sorry.
four years.
Look, I'm not even going to entertain a discussion about David Warner until we get into the top five. Spoiler alert. I'm not even going to entertain that discussion.
Well,
So let's stop that here.
you might
We
have
can
to
go on
change
and on
that.
and on for 3 days, and I'm not going to stop talking about David Warner.
Fine. Okay.
So
So then let's just go with Raina at 10,
yeah,
and then
and then 9 Pollard.
no, I told you. Much higher
Really?
up. For me,
Okay.
like for me, both. I mean, if you're okay with Russell, the reason that I picked Pollard over Russell is because Pollard obviously he's been doing it. He's been doing it since 2010. It's
Yeah,
been 10 years since he's been doing the same thing over and over and over again. Russell, obviously, the recent bias comes into play. He's only
yeah,
done it over the last 2 or 3 years. So again, it's and Pollard doesn't even bowl, like he bowls rarely.
yeah,
Russell, for example, he's more of an all-rounder, but in spite of that, his impact has been brilliant, especially the
yeah.
last IPL. So I'd probably put Russell at 9 then.
So you'd have okay. Uh, Just because of longevity, though. I mean, Russell has a strike rate of 185. Do you know how much 185 is? It's like unreal. And
I
it's not
agree.
just the last, and it's been consistent over the last 5 years.
I
He's
know, I
been
know.
hitting 150, 160, 200.
I agree. So in terms of highest strike rates in the IPL, I think Sam Curran tops the list. But
Yeah, but
obviously,
he's
Sam Curran has, played how many games? He's played 13 games. So Russell obviously has played 67 games and he's averaging 184.
strike rate.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Of
strike
the
rate.
people who
Sorry.
qualify in the list, Russell is like way above, like minimum 30 games. Has
Yeah.
to be Russell. So that's why I actually have Russell and slightly higher.
Okay.
The thing
Fine.
is,
So then let's go with Polly at 9.
there you go. Yeah, that's I can live with that.
Polly at 9. Fine. And
Okay.
then 8.
Uh, I had Shane Watson at 8. Well, if I rearrange my list now, I'd have Shane Watson at 8.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree. We don't
uh,
even need to discuss. I
yeah,
mean, in a recent list of articles by Cricinfo where they looked at IPL MVPs,
yeah,
I think Watson ranked in what, second or third, somewhere like that.
yeah,
Like incredible impact ever
yeah.
since right from day one, right from
Exactly.
being
So,
in Rajasthan, right
yeah,
from when he played for Rajasthan, bowling and batting.
yeah. Shane Watson and Kamran Akmal, the best opening partnership ever in the history of IPL. So yeah, I mean, again, and the fact is, okay, recently again he's been struggling this year,
Yeah, yeah.
and that can easily come into the argument. But like, was it 2 years ago when he scored 100 in the final to win it for CSK?
He did.
So
Yeah, that was
and
only
again
2 years ago.
exactly, and again at that time people thought he was done, he was finished.
Yeah,
And he still comes up with performances. I'm sure this year he will have one or two great performances.
yeah.
But for his longevity, for his consistency, Watson has to be there.
Cool,
So number 8.
cool.
So that's our first part. Let's recap. So we've got Pandya at 15,
Yeah,
Mike Hussey at 14,
yeah.
Yusuf Pathan at 13,
Yes.
Sean Marsh at 12, Rohit Hitman Sharma at 11, Suresh Raina at 10, Karen Pollard 9, and Shane Watson at 8. So that's our 15 to number 8 IPL best batsman. I'm sure we've already given some spoilers as to who is to come in our top 7. But stay tuned for the next part of this episode to find out. And thank you for watching.